Hello, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of Hurdle the Line. I am your host, Chapman, and I am joined by three of my amazing team, Karl, Fletch, and Sam. How are we today, guys? Did we enjoy week two of the preseason?
I did. I
Yeah,
did.
got
That's some
another win.
tepid.
So
Oh, there we go. Tepid response there. Uh, Karl, did you get to see some of your future franchise quarterback, Drake May, play this weekend? Because I did.
Did get we did, and I thought he did fairly decently well. His footwork, which was one of the major issues coming out of the draft, didn't look like was any sort of issues to deal with. One highlight play, unfortunately, he didn't come down with a catch, so therefore it's non-existent. Was a 55-yard bomb that he threw to Javon Baker, who decided it would be a good idea to not catch it. I was fuming when I missed that. I was like, for goodness sake. So yeah, but apart from that, it was all good. I lost to the Eagles, 14-13, but it's preseason. There was some good points in that game though. But no, Drake looked really good. And Gerard Mayo has said something rather cryptic today, because he said about 3 weeks ago, he said, yeah, Jacoby Brissett is our starting QB, no questions asked. But it seems like now, sounds like he's started to change his tune a little bit. We're going to see what happens in the final preseason game against Washington. This is the last audition for Drake May to maybe make a case to start week one against the Bears. Not Bears, sorry. Bengals, beg your pardon. And yeah, we'll just have to see. Sorry, I've rambled on. Go on, continue.
Fletch, how the Lions look?
It's interesting. No starters played, so I think how can you truly tell how the exact Lions looked? I think the defense continued to show growth. Our kind of second string, third string defensive players seem to be working quite well together. There was a play, I think Xavier Worthy went on a crossing route, and there was I can't tell you exactly who it was on the play just off the top of my head, but the communication between who was picking who, they were in man coverage, and it changed who was picking him up, because I think one guy, the communication between them was fantastic, and things like that were really good to see that we didn't see last year, things that weren't happening last year. So I can only speak, I guess, to that and how good that was to see the defense working together like that, and Jake Bates hitting a 66. That's another game, 43-yard game winner. To see the game out was fantastic, and FU Patrick Mahomes for pulling that crap on us as well. By the way,
It was a cool catch, and you're talking about the behind the back
yes.
pass that we got to see completed. That was fun. It was only shown 450,000 times on Saturday during the highlights. So, Sam, did you get to watch some Rams? But more importantly, before we get going, how's the little guy doing?
yeah, he's good. He's good. He's almost he's able to sort of hold his own head. Well, starting to hold his own head now. We had him set up properly. So he's now becoming more and more aware, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. So, but
He can stick his head up for the games coming soon. So that'll be good.
In terms of the preseason, I mean, it's again probably similar to Fletch. There's not really much in terms of like starters to look out for at the moment. We've obviously Bennett's played the whole game last game and didn't throw 4 interceptions. He only threw the 1 this time. So it's a
Baby steps. Baby steps.
Yeah. he's still coming back from whatever it was he was off for. Don't want to start any rumours about what it all was, but John Whittington had another good game. There was one play which I remember seeing, which was all over socials, which was Amar Spates, our UDFA linebacker, who absolutely bulldozed one of the Chargers players, absolutely destroyed him, which was quite fun to watch. I mean, I thought it was more of a shoulder tackle. It's sort of the thing you wouldn't be allowed in rugby, but apparently you're allowed it in in the NFL. But yeah, I think it was just seeing what some of the depth players are like, and I think Zach Evans had a relatively good game, and Boston Scott wasn't too bad. So yeah, it's just seeing how they're all doing. But I mean, it'd be nice to see maybe someone like Blake Corum get a few reps, maybe in the final week, just to see what he's about. But I know that he has been held back a bit just because I think he was still coming back from some form of injury or something. So hopefully we'll get to see him next week against who we got next week? The Texans.
Nice.
I can tell you what Blake Corum's about. It's about winning championships.
Well, we don't know what he's like in the NFL yet, so
You don't, but you're pretty sure to know that Kyron Williams is going to get injured at some point.
Maybe he didn't do too bad last year for injuries. I mean, the year before he was terrible. I think he spent the whole time injured. But
Chapman,
yes,
thrilling 13-12 with the Ravens.
Well, I was going to say it was really nice. For those of you who don't know, I'm usually in an undisclosed location in London, but right now I'm in an undisclosed location in Atlanta. I'm here with my family, visiting my family for a few weeks. So I got to watch the game at 12 noon on Saturday, with my nephew, and it was awesome. Yeah. So the highlights would be we got to see our second round pick, Rook Orororo, who's been sort of not talked about too much because of the Penix pick, obviously, but he had a really nice sack, showed some skill against the Ravens, which you'd like to see. In all his genius, Raheem has decided not to play Michael Penix anymore this preseason, which I think is a bit disappointing, especially for me, because I was hoping to see him on Friday when I'm in the Benz for the last preseason game. Slightly concerning. I mean, it's been an exciting week for the Falcons. We'll talk about that during the news segment. But our kicker, Younghoe Koo, is one of the most accurate kickers in the NFL history. Missed 3 preseason field goals. He missed them all wide left. So we all listening to the talk radio this week or this morning here. Think he was maybe working on something. He's outside. We'll see. You don't love seeing it, but Koo has proven himself that we shouldn't worry yet until we have to worry, but obviously that was not great. And I'll just give you guys one little tip. There's a guy who's maybe going to make the team. His name is Chris Blair. He might be our 5th or 6th wide receiver, but he has been making plays the last 2 weeks. And I know preseason wide receivers are fool's gold, but if you take a flyer in fantasy, you've got to pick, come round 15, 16 or whatever, you got to take somebody. Chris Blair, if he makes the Falcons, he looks like he has he's got some moxie. So keep an eye out when you're doing your drafts later in a couple of weeks.
I think sorry, what were you going to say, Chapman? Sorry.
No, go right ahead, Fletch.
I was going to say, I want to ask everybody actually around this because, I don't focus enough on the Falcons or the Rams or the Patriots to know. Out of this every preseason, someone makes a roster that you probably weren't looking at, you probably didn't know beforehand, and we get to know them throughout the season. Who's one of those for you who may end up I know you kind of mentioned there, Chapman, someone who, looking at fantasy, someone who's going to end up probably picking up some reps, some balls throughout the year. Who were a couple of those guys for the Patriots and the Rams?
I'll let Sam go first.
I mean, probably the obvious one is Jordan Whittington. I don't think anyone was expecting him to maybe probably to be wide receiver 5, maybe. But now with what looks like Tutu Atwell might even be on his way out, I think he just doesn't seem to be getting favoured at all. We've got to Marcus Robinson at 3. So, I mean, he's possibly one that you might see. If you remember from a couple of years ago, the way that Ben Skoranek used to play out the backfield, where he used to have those sort of late runs out the backfield and would be sort of almost like the screen player. They reckon that Whittington might fill that role, and the reason why we then allowed Skoranek to trade the Skoranek to the Texans, because we have that in Whittington. So for me, he's one that I might be looking out for to see if he can make some interesting plays. I've not really seen much of him, but JJ Lapp made an absolute stonker of a catch in pre-season, just in that last game for Stetson's touchdown yesterday. So maybe he might be one that'll go under the radar. But yeah, I think Whittington really is the only one. And then maybe on the defense, there's a guy called Davis. I can't even remember what position he even plays, but I remember seeing he's made quite a few good plays. I think he was on the D line. So he might be one to look out for.
For the Pats, it's a bit difficult because we're still trying to establish who is going to be our wide receivers going into the draft and so on. But there was one player, he's on special teams. Whether he makes the cut or not, I'm not 100% sure. He's been kick returning and punt returning. Go by the name of Dan Wallace, I think his name is. He's been doing some really, really good kickoff returning. And yeah, there was a possibility he might get in there, but he's got a battle with the likes of Marcus Jones. He's got Jalen Reagor as well. So it's going to be hard. I mean, I think the 53-man roster will be quite self-explanatory for us for what we need it for. But there hasn't really been anybody that has actually sort of like shone through like we expected to. So apart from Dan Wallace, I'm not sure who else could make the 53-man roster for the Patriots, in my eyes anyway.
Out of interest, Carl, what's Polk been like? Or have we not seen anything of Polk? I've not looked at anything in terms of Patriots-wise, but I've seen a lot of him going quite like sort of third roundish, second, third round in most NFL drafts.
He was second round pick, and he's been Drake May's favourite target. So that was good to see. Polk has been really, really good. He hasn't had a case of the drops on like Javon Baker has, but Polk has been a lot more assured. He's very good at climbing up the ladder to get at the ball in areas where the corner can't get to it. And his route running is actually really smooth, really, really smooth, and he's got a good transition in the separation as well. So, promising. It is promising.
I want to add one more. This is maybe not somebody you take a flyer on, but maybe in deeper leagues, Jace McClellan, who was our 6th round pick. You may remember his name if you watched any Alabama football last year. It was surprising that the Falcons took another running back with obviously Bijan and Tyler Algier, but McClellan showed why the Falcons took him, man. He dominated in the 3rd and 4th quarter for the Falcons. Scored a touchdown toward the end of the game. We went for 2 just because we didn't want to tie. You never want to tie in a preseason game, and we obviously we didn't get the 2-point conversion in the game to win. But he's a running back you might want to keep an eye on in deeper leagues. But also, I'm just excited to have him on the team along with Bijan and Tyler. Fletch, what about you? Any Lions we should be thinking about?
Yeah, again, if you look at deep leagues, there has been, I don't know if anyone saw last week, Dan Campbell made a kind of bit of a public statement is that they were dying for a wide receiver to step up because we're a little bit thin in the wide receiver room. It feels like this week a couple of people did. Isaiah Williams is one that was a UDFA this year. I don't think any of us actually realised he was on the roster until he turns up and you go, oh, okay, who's this Williams guy? He looked really good this week, stepped up to the plate, made a couple of big plays, looked feisty. Whether he does make the roster or not, I don't know. But if he continues into this week to make some of the plays he has been doing, I would like to see him get that roster spot. And you don't know if he shows to be a little, trustworthy target. He could see some targets this year. I don't know, because, like I say, we're crying out for that wide receiver 3 a bit. And I mentioned earlier, Sione Vaki, our 4th round pick, who was a bit of an unknown. He came into the draft as a safety / running back. He's made a few plays. He's looked pretty good at running back, a tough, bruising running back, but gets yardage. And he's made a couple of decent catches, so I don't think they'll be playing him in the safety role. I think he'll be getting some reps down, in the backfield on the offense. So there are a couple that I do actually think you might need to look out for. Sione Vaki could be a little bit of an impact player, a bit all around, and maybe Isaiah Williams to take a roster spot, maybe nick one at the end.
Just to correct you, Chapman, sorry, it wasn't Dan Wallace, it was David Wallace for the Patriots kick returner. So I had to get that name wrong there.
Well, you mentioned Sione Vaki once, and everyone goes, "Nope, I'm not doing this anymore."
To be fair, I've heard
Chapman, you're on mute.
Vaki's been going quite not high, but he's been going in a lot of sort of deeper rookie drafts from what I've seen. So I think he's one that's on people's radar.
I would expect him to put some numbers up this season.
Yeah, I would too.
Chapman does not like Sione Vaki. Is there anyone else who came out this week who looked at? I thought Caleb Williams looked quite good this week.
He did look good.
He's apparently not going to be playing in the final game against whoever it is against the Chiefs. They've come out and said so. He's not going to be starting in that final preseason game, which you kind of wouldn't expect given the fact they're going to be going into a season. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, by the sounds of it, he's been doing okay. I think Bo Nix had a good game last week, didn't he?
Bo Nix, looked very assured. The one thing that Bo Nix was very good at when he was in Oregon was his quick decision making, quick getting that ball out very, very quickly. And that was basically one of the problems that happened with Denver last year with Russell Wilson. He was just hanging onto the ball for far too long. Bo Nix is looking at his first read, quickly get it out all the time. And he looked good, he looked assured. The fact that he hasn't been labelled as the starter for Denver yet is quite mind-boggling, to be honest, because you'd rather have Jared Stidham instead of him. That's quite embarrassing, frankly, but it is what it is. But it's a good sign by Bo Nix. And if he does click into gear and start getting these downfield throws, because let's not be real, Denver do actually have some decent receiving weapons. Okay, they've just lost Gary Jeudy, but they've still got Cortland Sutton, they've still got KJ Hamler, they've still got Patrick, they've still got. Do they still have Okoyabwe Bunam, the tight end? If I pronounce his name properly.
Dulcich, haven't they?
They've got Greg Dulcich. That's a really good addition to their receiving pool.
They've got Troutman as well. I know he's not really one that does much, but he's still an option.
He's a Jimmy Graham type of tight end, really. He's more of a receiving catch. You'll see him lined up in the slot every now and then. But no, I mean, if he keeps on going, Denver might have something to say. But yeah, Sean Payton got very pissed off with Russell Wilson last year, and you can tell that the only downside to all of this is the fact that they're still paying Russell Wilson $37.8 million, and the Steelers are only paying 1.2 for this year. That's the bad news about it. But they cut their losses to such a degree because they knew they had to.
I think we speak about this a lot, though, and I think actually it becomes a... Weirdly enough, when we talk about certain quarterbacks, it seems to just be a forgotten thing. The best thing for most quarterbacks you can do in their rookie year is sit them. Some of the best quarterbacks... Look at the two best quarterbacks. The argument, actually, going forward now, let's face it, is Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. That's going to be the only argument, both of which sat their first year. Some of the other best quarterbacks in the NFL, particularly of this generation, particularly of the last so many years, have sat their first year. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the best things you can do with a quarterback. Sit them the first year. And I know, like you say, you don't want to sit there and Stidham instead of Nix, how silly that is, but actually, look, let Nix sit that first year. It might be far better for his development. Yes, you probably, if you're Denver, you're probably going to have to sit through a crap year. Maybe Sean Payton doesn't have that kind of leash to play around with, but I think in the long term, it tends to work out better for a quarterback.
No, I understand that. I absolutely understand that. I just think if the Broncos, after week 5, they're sitting at 0-5, 1-4, will John Elway finally have a say on Sean Payton and said, no, you need to get Bo Nix in now because this guy's just simply not it?
No, Bo Nix, dude, I don't think Elway is telling Sean Payton anything. I think Sean Payton took that job and saying, I'm the dude. And I think and I think Bo Nix is going to start. He's betting his career. He's betting
he
his
will
job
start.
on Bo Nix. Yeah, he's going to
I
play.
think he'll start.
I gotta say, I gotta say, I'm jumping into this conversation. Sorry, guys, I had a little technical issue and was out. I was really irritated that the Falcons did not play Penix this week. Like, why are you saving your rookie? He's going to be sitting on. Like, he needs those. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the preseason's important for people who've been in the league for like 10 years or whatever. Like, but like Penix needs reps, man. Let him be in there. And like, I don't think you let him out there with like the third string offensive line by any means. But like, I don't know. I was really frustrated, and it's been a lot of talk around here. But I agree. I think letting a quarterback who needs some time to finish. Some can start, some can't. And I think it'll be really interesting because like Chase Daniels, he's got all the talent to start this year, and we're gonna hit this in the news. Maybe you guys already brought this up, but he's obviously going to be starting, and that's probably the right decision. I think Caleb Williams, same thing. I mean, obviously they didn't draft him to sit him on the bench, get him in there. But for some of these other quarterbacks, I think JJ probably should have sat for some of the time before he got hurt.
It does seem bizarre that you would put in. You'd get. I mean, I can understand sitting Penix, but essentially you're playing. I mean, they played Taylor Heineke over it. I don't get that. Like, Heineke doesn't unless that's what they're saying. If Taylor Heineke is going to be the number 2 and Penix is the number 3. That's be the only reason you would put him there. But
I think they're shopping Heineke. They're shopping him for sure. So they want to highlight him. But I don't get it either. They've said Penix is number 2 now. Like they basically said that, and they said they saw enough. It makes no sense. Sorry, Carl.
What it worries me, Chapman, is the fact that you took Penix the 8th overall pick, okay, which is fine. It's an insurance policy because obviously you got Kirk Cousins. But you also paid Kirk Cousins $180 million on a 4-year contract coming off a torn Achilles injury. It's a little bit alarming when you're not giving your rookie quarterback any sort of reps in preseason. It just makes that 8th overall pick absolutely baffling. And on top of all that, which we'll get into the news about, you traded for Matthew Judon, who is 32, coming off an injury as well. For a third-round pick.
Let's say some of this because we're going to be going through the NFC today, guys. So
yeah,
Carl, I like your tease. I know you don't like
what the tease. That was a fact. But carry on.
So just one last thing to say is I do get where you're coming from because again I'm watching. I know I don't want to make this about kind of me and the Lions or whatever, but I'm sat there watching Nate Sudfeld for 2 quarters when Hendon Hooker could be getting reps.
I was going to say, why is Hendon Hooker not getting reps? There was a big thing about him being the
second half. He got them in the second half, which fair enough. He did. But you're not like. My question was, what do you like? What the benefit of preseason is to get the fringe guys the reps to see maybe who can make the roster. It's maybe to test some plays out that you may not have had chance to get in certain situations, and to learn. You learn nothing from having Nate Sudfeld in that backfield. You learn nothing. You don't put those receivers in the best position to make the plays to see who truly has the best possible route to being on the roster. Hendon Hooker does that, and then we just got Jake Fromm, and he sat there doing nothing. But Hendon Hooker, I expect to see a bit more of Hendon Hooker and a bit less of Nate Sudfeld on Saturday. But anyway, yeah, sorry, I just wanted to complain about
I'm
that.
the only one in a unique situation where we're actually giving the what's going to be the QB2 going into at least the first 2 weeks reps and giving him they gave him the whole game this week just gone. So I mean, it's just weird. There's obviously all these issues with backup quarterbacks as well, with others and that as well. But we're actually giving Stetson the chance to actually show what he can do, and also it's also a threat for him getting him into the NFL because he's never actually been in that so far. He's not with him having that year out. He's essentially put himself another year back, so he now needs to get in with the team, learn the plays, and show what he actually is capable of doing, which apparently is 5 interceptions in 2 games. So fun times.
I think we do have to acknowledge, though, there is such thing as quality reps. And I don't think putting a QB2 in with the third string guys or even lesser than guys makes a lot of sense either, because there's an increased risk of injury there. And there's also, what are you learning from a guy who's like, these guys who are really scrapping to get on special teams or whatever, So but still, it's an interesting conversation. I was just really frustrated with that decision. Uh, at least from the Falcons standpoint, hey, because I just want to see him. And I think if he's going to sit on the bench all year, you want to get as many reps as you can. And all you other guys got to see your toys play, so it's like Anyway, let's break the huddle, guys. We'll do some news. We'll run around. And as Carl's already teased, the Falcons had a big week this week. They traded a third-round pick to the New England Patriots for Matthew Judon. Judon is a four-time Pro Bowler. He's got 66 sacks in, I believe, about 9 seasons, double-digit sacks in the last 4 in terms of the seasons he completed. He did tear his bicep last year. And if any of you, Carl has mentioned that he was injured, but a bicep injury is not something that we are too concerned about with a guy who's that age in terms of what he can do as a pass rusher. The Falcons had to do this. They lost their third-round pick last week. They probably have the least talented defensive end and pass rush in the NFL. I like the move. I know we can talk a little bit more about it during our NFC stuff about whether it was smart to trade a third-round pick without having a deal done with Judon, but it was done so fast. I know we were competing with the Bears, and Judon it was said today picked the Falcons to go to. The Falcons also signed former Bronco and Pro Bowler safety Justin Simmons. He joins Jesse Bates in what I think is probably one of the strongest safety tandems in the league. Justin signed a $8 million deal, which was 7.5 guaranteed. It's a 1-year deal. But it's also interesting because Stephon Gilmore the next day signed with the Vikings. He's a safety, and he got $10 million with $7 million guaranteed. It's pretty interesting. So some moves there on the defensive side for both the Falcons and the Vikings. Any guys have any thoughts on those? It'd be interesting if you had anything.
It just for me personally, look, Judon has been absolutely amazing for us. I wish him all the best in Atlanta. You've got yourself a prime asset at the pass rusher position. You really, really do. If there was one thing you was missing, it was pass rushing. Okay, you didn't have it. What scratches my head with this is that as I originated back, you pick Penix at the 8th overall pick, and then you don't play him through preseason. You don't give him the reps that he actually needs to try and compete alongside Kirk Cousins, who, by the way, is still coming off a torn Achilles on a 4-year contract, $180 million that you actually paid for him. And on top of all that, you traded a third for Matt Judon, which is fine. You needed a pass rusher. But now it makes that 8th overall pick even more head-scratching and even more unbearable, because at the time you could have had pass rushers. You could have had Laiatu. You could have had Chop Robinson. You could have had the Dallas Turner. You could have had Darius Robinson in that position. There was an edge rusher there for you to take at 8. And you took the quarterback as more of an insurance policy for Kirk Cousins. Because if Kirk Cousins goes down again, because let's be real, torn Achilles, you don't know how well a player is going to come back from that. We say as you get older, it takes a lot more time to heal. We're going to soon find out down the line how well that Achilles heel of Aaron Rodgers has healed. Pardon the pun there. But yeah, what's your thoughts, say,
based on the signing of Matthew Judon, is the Falcons did take Braylon Trice in the 3rd round, who is also a pass rusher. Now, just based upon what we did with Bobby Wagner when we brought him in, we brought in Bobby Wagner to do a job, not only to obviously be on the field, but to basically be a 100% mentor to Ernest Jones. Bryson, is it Bryson? I can't remember, we'll get the names mixed up. But the Young and Jones, those sort of linebackers and that, we brought him in for that job, to do that, to teach these rookies who are coming in. Now, I do think that Judon's probably going to play a very similar role. I think he'll have probably more of an impact than Wagner did for us, because Wagner was not brilliant for us. He was okay. But I think it'll be sort of a similar role, is that you're bringing him in to do a job on the field whilst you're bringing through rookies. But also, he's a great player to learn from, especially for someone like Braylon Trice and I think was it JD Bertrand was the other was a linebacker you also brought in as well in the fifth. So, I think there is that element that yes, okay, it's a lot of money for someone who's 32 coming off that injury, but also the experience and the knowledge that he brings to that team for two rookies who are coming into the league. I think that's where a lot of the money I think goes into, and I think you do see a fair few of these trades happening because of this reason. And to me, that's where I see that why they've gone for Juden at this stage.
Yeah. I think we can talk a little bit about this again as we go through the NFC South and the decision. Karl, I totally get your thoughts there. I think, I'm not going to defend them, but what I think the thinking is there is, again, yes, we are paying Kirk Cousins. It's a guaranteed, basically 2-year deal with an out after 2 years. It's not a full 100 million, 180. I think, again, it's been very well documented that Arthur Blank has said that he's not making the decisions, but he's basically told Terry and Raheem that he does not want to be in QB quarterback hell again. It's a lot harder to get a quarterback than it is to get a defensive end, and you can buy defense. And I didn't know too much about Judon except for sort of, obviously knew he was a great defensive player. The most I've gone on a spree the last couple of weeks. And look, I think it says a lot that New England was trying to keep him, very, very much trying to keep him, and they were not able to, to pay a deal. And I think New England's in a place where a 32-year-old, expensive pass rusher is not part of what they want to do future-wise right now. So, I think it, like when the deal went down, I texted you guys and I said I think it's a win-win for both teams. I think and hopefully I think we will be working to get a deal done with him sometime during this season to keep him for a couple of years. No, we'll see. But let's table the rest of that talk. Unless do you guys have any thoughts on the Gilmore signing for the Vikings? Feels a bit weird. I don't know what the Vikings are now with JJ gone, but because I was kind of excited to see what would happen. But Fletch, you know the Vikings well.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that you're going to predicate the Vikings on is a damn good secondary. On that's something that I think has become synonymous with the Vikings overall. So, I mean, yeah, it's a move that I guess makes sense because you are continuing to bolster a secondary. Stephon Gilmore was someone that the Lions, I believe, were looking at as a potential. Could we bring him in? Could we look at him? Obviously we didn't. But I don't know how seriously that was even looked into. But yeah, I mean, look. At the end of the day, you're putting a very good defensive back in a room with a lot of other very good defensive backs. And if JJ McCarthy's out, you're relying on who is it they brought in as the backup QB again this year?
Sam Darnold, and then they brought in Matt Corral.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He's the starting quarterback, not the backup.
Nick Mullins left, didn't he? But look, I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold hater on the planet. I think he'll do a job, and I think it's going to be similar to potentially what the Jets maybe wanted to try and get out of last year. The defense is going to keep you in games, and let's just hope I guess the offense can kind of crawl over that line, and the defense will keep the game manageable for the offense.
It's whether that O-line can keep him vertical, because Darius Shaw went down injured. They lost quite a lot of their O-line.
They're just having the year from hell. But it's interesting. I guess Stephon decided that he wanted the money over anything else. Because I mean, I know there's some other teams that wanted safeties, and it's interesting. I'm happy with Justin Simmons, not to take anything away from Gilmore, but Gilmore getting 10 and Justin Simmons taking 8. It's a little interesting in my view. But moving along, guys. I know you'll be sad to hear Colt McCoy has retired after 14 seasons in the NFL. Most recently, he was the backup quarterback in the Arizona Cardinals back in 2022. I don't believe he was on a team last year. He's going to be don't worry about him. He's got a new job. He's going to be a commentator for the Big Ten. I believe that's ESPN.
NBC.
And he'll be making.
I believe it was.
Which is it? NBC. Sorry, NBC. You're right.
Fox.
NBC.
Big Ten isn't Big Ten Fox.
No, it's NBC.
Or has it changed now? Sorry.
Yeah. So farewell, Colt McCoy. One of the coolest names in all of football, I think. And I know Jaden Daniels has been named a starting quarterback for the Commanders. I'm sure you're all shocked. Garner Minshew is going to be starting quarterback for the Raiders. And the Steelers have yet to name a starting quarterback, despite playing Russell Wilson and Justin Fields pretty much a lot of the preseason game this week, too. I'm very excited because I will be seeing one of those two quarterbacks at week 1 at Mercedes-Benz here in Atlanta.
What did I say earlier on why Russell Wilson would struggled so much in Denver? Because he was hanging on to the ball too much. What's he doing at the Steelers at the minute? Holding onto the ball too much.
I did see him get absolutely nailed.
And the AFC pass rushers are a lot more deadlier than the NFC. But it's not going to go well for them. They're either going to play. Russell Wilson is very good. Go on, Sam.
I was say the thing with Russell Wilson is his game is like, when you think about at his best, was built on being quick and getting out of the pocket and getting away from those tackles. He seems to have lost it. So
he had slippage at his back. He had slippage at the back end when he was in Seattle. He had slippage when he was in Denver, and now it looks like he's got slippage here in Pittsburgh. When you've gone to 3 different organizations and the same occurring thing has happened over and over and over again, what's the common denominator? Yeah. Russell Wilson. And no knock on Justin Fields. I think he is going to be better in Steeler Nation than what he will do what he did for the Bears. But he's not consistent. He's just not a consistent quarterback, not a consistent thrower of the ball. Great runner, don't get me wrong. But this is why we've all predicted for the Steelers to finish rock bottom of the AFC North. And could this be the actual season where they could finish under 500? For some reason, they obviously BS their way to 9-8. They always do.
They've just lost Jalen Warren potentially for the start of the season.
That means Najee Harris' stock goes through the roof.
It might be good for them to actually lose, honestly. But
hanging
sounds
on.
weird. Yeah, because it gives you a better chance to restock next year. But let's move on into the meat of our conversation today on the pod.
Before you do, I just wanted to mention, I only remembered looking at it up the other day. Teddy Bridgewater had his first coaching role as the Miami Northwestern High School head coach, and he won his first game. So I just thought I'd like to mention that because obviously he's, being the Lions man.
Lions legend.
For a year.
Legend, absolute legend of the franchise. He is arguably the best backup quarterback we had for the whole of 2023.
He looked promising.
That's good, Nut.
Teddy Bridgewater looked very promising.
Good luck to Teddy and his team. Yeah. I got to watch some high school football this weekend on television, too. It was kind of fun. Georgia high school football. But like I said, today the meat of our conversation is about the NFC. We're going to go division by division and talk through who we think will be the winners of the division and the losers, and talk about our general thoughts about each team. We're going to quickly hit everyone up. We got 4 divisions, obviously, 3 of which are represented here. Karl has been nice enough to take on the NFC East today because Sean couldn't make it. And so we're excited through that. So just like we did last week with the AFC, we'll one of us will start, go through, and then everybody can kind of chime in with their thoughts. So to start us off, Karl, NFC East. The current odds right now is the win totals for the Vegas has Philly winning 10.5 games, with Dallas right behind them at 9.5, and then the Giants coming in at 6.5, and Washington Commanders coming in at 6.5. Karl, what are your thoughts on the NFC East? Who do you have winning the division, and who do you have coming in at the bottom?
Well, stat of the day I'd like to issue is the fact that the NFC East has never been retained since 2004. So there's always been a new team winning that division. So last year it was the Cowboys, and this year it's going to be Philadelphia. I still think they are the team to beat. Their defense is still very, very good. Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to have a point to prove. But last year was just a bit of an anomaly for him. And he can continue to go on. A.J. Brown is going to try. A.J. Brown, they've still got Dallas Goedert at tight end. But they've had an acquisition of running back, Saquon Barkley. I mean, to go from a Giant to an Eagle in the same division, that's going to be absolutely That's going to be bone crunching if you're a Giants fan to just see that happen, because it means you're going to see him twice run all over your carcass of a back line. But I digress. I've got the Eagles going at 11-6. I think it will be close. It will be tight. But to say that the Commanders are only 6.5, I think people are going to be in for a massive shock. I think I honestly think that Jaden Daniels is going to really light this division on fire. So I have gone for both the Commanders and the Cowboys to finish on 9-8. Neither of them make the playoffs. It's going to take 10 wins to make the playoffs, and I'll go through as to why later on. The Cowboys, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. How many more times are they going to have any more bites at the cherry before they actually reach somewhere? Dak Prescott is 2-6 in the playoffs, and he won $60 million a year. Yeah, okay, whatever, mate. That ain't happening anytime soon. And CeeDee Lamb, Joey Jones has lowballed him, and further down the pipe, Micah Parsons is going to want to be paid as the best pass rusher in the NFL. Behind obviously Nick Bosa. So I just think the way it stands, Eagles, they're gonna win the division. I think they'll win it by at least a couple of games. Cowboys and Commanders, I've got the Cowboys winning the tiebreaker, but it's gonna not make a blind bit of difference. They'll miss the playoffs. The Commanders finish on 9-8 as well. And then there's the Giants. You ever heard the term of phrase, no matter how much of a turd you polish, it's still a turd? Well, the New York Giants are the turd and Malik Neighbors is the polish. I can't say anything more than that. So 3-14, I've got them. When you've got Daniel Jones, your quarterback, who can't throw a freaking football, and you're paying him $48 million a year, you have put yourself in a hole. And I don't know how the hell you get out of that. I actually do generally think if we didn't have taken Drake May, we would have took the Giants pick. Because guess what? We would have had a top 3 pick for next year. But that's besides the point. I just think the Giants are just in an absolute mess. You lose your best running back. You've got Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton as your 2 best receivers, which isn't exactly something right. Neighbors is a good receiver coming out of college. But when you're relying on him so much, he's just going to get double, triple covered. So I just find it really, really awkward. So yeah, I've got the Giants at 3-14, which is in line for a top 3 pick in next year's draft. But yeah, it's going to look bleak for the G-men.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say I threw the NFC East at Karl right before we started, and he never disappoints. Thank you so much, Karl. Sam, I saw you smirking. I think you've got some opinions here. Can you talk about the NFC? What do you think about Karl's predictions, and what do you think about your where you got everything?
Cowboys?
I was more thinking of, because he mentioned obviously Darius Slayton and Malik Neighbors, and I have a real soft spot for Wan'Dale Robinson. I was hoping you'd mention him, but I think he's going to be a lot better this year. I mean, he's spent a lot of times injured, so hopefully I think I want him to do well. But he's at the Giants, so what does it matter? No, I've pretty much got the exact same. I've got the Eagles winning 12-5, so it's slightly different to, an extra win. I've got the Cowboys 10-7, again, not making the playoffs. The Commanders, I've actually only got them 8-11. I think Jane Daniels is going to be good. I think he's going to be very good, but I'm still not seeing how they're going to make a lot of difference. I think he'll do well, but I don't think they'll do well. Or as well as maybe they could do. And then obviously 4-13. I just think they're going to be absolutely poor. At the moment, I've got them as I want to say the 3rd or 4th pick. I'm not too sure. I haven't thought about the AFC too much. So, but they're going to be down there again. They are just a dreadful franchise at the moment.
Thank you, Sam. Fletch, you got any tidbits for us on the NFC East?
Yeah. Shadar Sanders will be a Giant next year. No, maybe not. Probably not. I hope not. But yeah, it's one of those things where I remember that. I remember seeing that stat for the first time, Carl, not that long ago. That It's been kind of popping up every now and again for the last few years that how long it's been since the NFC East has been retained. And it feels a bit weird because I know Washington won it in 2020, but you also can't think of any other team. You would almost forget that Washington won it that year. And it seems to just be a Cowboys and Eagles rotation no matter what, and that is how it's going to continue.
The year that Washington won it though, that was in COVID year though.
Yeah.
That was a weird time.
That was the NFC least year, wasn't it?
That was the NFC least, and it was basically Washington won by doing nothing. It was basically, the Luigi wins by doing nothing meme. It was basically what Washington did, and then they got their spleen ripped out by Tampa Bay in the wild card game.
See, Carl, this is why you're my favourite deputy. Hey. Yeah, it's a shame you're not still wearing the hat. It would have been better. But anyway,
I'm down with the Cowboys. Carry on.
It was, yeah. Other than the COVID year when it was the NFC least, you would forget that the Commanders have won it in this decade. The Giants haven't won it since 2011. It's a Cowboys Eagles division, and like I say, it just goes in rotation. I see both teams regressing this year. I don't see a world in which the Eagles go back to a year ago when they made the Super Bowl. I see a world not quite the same as they ended last season on that awful run, but that's because they've thrown Matt Patricia out of the way, and he no longer has that kind of role. So, but and the Cowboys, I don't think they're in a particularly good place at this moment in time. So it's going to go between one of them, and it's going to be a toss-up very similar. I can't actually think of anywhere else. It's probably similar to the AFC South last year, where it's probably going to be an 11-win team that takes the division. I can't see anything other than it. Don't see either team making it past the wild cards. At very best, you're looking at maybe, because that division will be kind of weak, maybe say the Cowboys win it, the Eagles might be able to pick up an extra couple of wins from that division, maybe see themselves in the wild card, but I'm kind of hoping that only one NFC East team makes it into the playoffs by the default position of you win that division.
Yep.
So I can't pick between one of the two. It's a toss of a coin at this moment in time. Giants at the bottom, Commanders, I think, will have an average year. They will surprise a few people, be better than a few people think, but obviously not be quite close enough. They'll probably get like 6 wins, 7 wins.
Excellent. Thank you, Fletch. It's interesting how much all of us hate the NFC East and have such hard opinions, because I time how long everybody speaks, and we seem to, like, if you dislike someone, you seem to be able to talk for like 15 minutes each. I'm just going to quickly say, I think the Giants are going to be one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL this season. I think they will be picking in the top 3. I don't want to ruin anything yet. And I hate that, because I do think Daboll probably is better coached than what that team is. And I think he's just, the Daniel Jones is going to just be an albatross across his neck. I surprisingly think that the Commanders could sneakily be one of those teams that actually really does really well this season. I think, unfortunately, though, they're in the wrong division to do well, because I still think, despite some of the concerns we have about the Cowboys and the Eagles, a lot of it being more off-field stuff than on-field, to be really honest with you, they could be sneaky good. I think Dan Quinn had a lot of bad luck in his end of his Falcons tenure, and I think he's done a really good job of building that when he built that Cowboys defense back up. I think it'll be interesting to see if he can make some changes to how he was as a head coach. And Jaden Daniels, as you said, Carl, is super exciting. So I don't know exactly what their win total will be, but I'm taking the over on that 6.5. I'm actually going to go bet that, because I didn't realize it was that low at this point. And then here's where I stand just really quickly. We've said a lot about both the Eagles and the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys are as much a mess as everybody thinks they are in terms of what they are, because I actually think, McCarthy has been, to win an average of 12 games every year is really tough. And that means you're a pretty good coach. Now, he did lose Dan Quinn on his defense, but he brought in Zimmer, and Zimmer's a hell of a good defensive coach. And I think he's taken over a lot of really good talent there. I think Michael Parsons, Dak, and CeeDee Lamb all want to get paid. I don't think they're going to play any less good because of that. I don't think they're going to be able to pay all of them. I think one of those deals is going to get done. If it's me, I'm locking up Parsons for as long as I can, and then we see where you get to with Dak and CD. But I'm picking the Cowboys to win that division. The thing I don't like about the Eagles is how they lost last year, and I think the vibes are still quite the same there. And I think Sirianni, I don't know if Sirianni is a serious head coach. But I think Hurts is a really good quarterback, and I think their team is going to depend on how good that defense is, and if Hurts can kind of rebound and have a year like he did 2 years ago when they led to the Super Bowl. And I think they're absolutely, this is not me taking anything out of the Philly. You got to pick one to win the division, and I like all the Cowboys players betting on themselves and being well. Anything else on the NFC East before we move on?
Just to catch up, I don't hate the NFC. I don't hate the NFC East. There's a few the teams in question.
You lost 2 Super Bowls to them. Of course you do.
No one likes.
You hate the Falcons and you beat them in the Super Bowl.
Listen, I don't hate the Eagles as a team. I just hate their fan base. They are so.
Oh well, yeah.
They are some of the most
violent.
Some of the most violent and hostile fans you'd ever have. The Cowboys are just insufferable because they're just the Cowboys. And the Giants, well, I hate the Giants because also they beat us twice as well thanks to that shithouse known as Eli Manning. But Washington, I actually have a soft spot for Washington, and this was whilst they had that terrible owner in the name of Dan Snyder. Now he's gone and they've got Josh Harrison. That team might actually be a lot more better. They actually might become more likable. So I don't hate the NFC East.
I don't either.
Just 3 of them. Just 3 of the 4.
I think I think you nailed it. Cowboys fans and Eagles fans, no disrespect to either of them, but they are insufferable. At least the American ones are, and I can say that for a fact. So. And I am related to a Dallas Cowboys fan. So,
I just want to say, I don't really care about the Giants. I just pity the Commanders, which is sad coming from a Lions fan. If someone like me or Raleigh pities you, it's a sad position to be in. Eagles can't stand. Now the Dallas Cowboys. I'm gonna cut myself off here and just say the things I say about the Dallas Cowboys I can't repeat in public. I agree. I hate them. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Before we move on, gents, just a quick reminder here. We're already let's try and keep our predictions to at least 2 minutes. If otherwise, we're going to be here for 4 hours. So anyway, so we're going to move on now to Fletch's favorite division, which is the NFC North. Arguably, probably one of the best divisions, the best division in this conference. And really quickly, I'm going to pull up these. I'm going to pull up these over-enders just before we start. So Vegas has Detroit at the top of this division, not surprisingly, at 10.5 wins, with Green Bay nipping at their heels at 9.5 wins. The Chicago Bears, upstart Chicago Bears, at 8.5 wins, and the Minnesota Vikings at the bottom with 6.5 wins. Fletch, tell us about the NFC North.
That's pretty tight. I would take, obviously, the Lions on the over. Now, I'd like to welcome you all to the Black and Blue division. And normally it's called the Black and Blue division because you get beat up in it, but also the Lions have black and blue uniforms and we're going to win the division again this year, so it will be a genuinely black and blue division. I don't see a world at this moment in time in which the Lions don't walk away, unless a major injury happens to Goff or Amon-Ra St. Brown or Penei Sewell, something major happens. There isn't a world at the moment where I can currently see the Lions losing enough games to finish second, though I do think it will be even closer than last year. I don't see the Packers having that terrible start to the season and having to try and play catch up. The Bears will obviously be a lot better this year now that they have a quarterback, and the Vikings, let's just wait and see. I think that's the correct order with the win totals. Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings. I would take the Lions on the over. I would probably take the Packers on the over. I would take the Bears on the under, though. I don't quite think they get there because I think Caleb Williams has teething problems. What was it you said on the college football podcast, Sam?
What?
Caleb Williams had on average 6 seconds to throw.
Oh, it was something like that. Yeah, it was 6.8 seconds or something ridiculous.
In the NFL, you are lucky to have 3. The You will have some teething problems with Caleb Williams. He looks fantastic, but you will have teething problems with him. He will do some things when he plays against a real defense that he will need to learn. I would take the under on that for the Bears.
Nice. I'm going to go to Sam next. Sam, NFC North. Who do you got?
The exact same. I think the Lions are gonna. And for me, it's obviously we're not going to come into the NFC yet, but I've got the Lions as being the number one playoff team this year.
I love you, Sam.
I do think that they are them. There's maybe two teams I think that are the top two teams in the NFC, and the Lions are one of them. So I can easily see them taking the number one overall position in the playoffs. The Packers I think are going to be really good again. I think 11 and 6 I've got them as. The Bears, I actually agree. I would take them as the under. I've got them as 7 and 10, so just under that over under. And the Vikings, yeah, they're just. I think I probably would have had them slightly higher than before with JJ there, but now he's not there. I don't think I would have got them any more wins, but I don't know. My 6 and 11 for them now seems a bit. I feel like it's a bit high, so they could. I mean, they could still sneak 6 wins, but yeah, it's just, and again, a bit like last season. It's just unlucky, unlucky for the Vikings again.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Karl, on to you, buddy.
I'm in unison with both Fletch and Sam. I have the Lions winning the division, but this isn't me blowing smoke up Fletcher's backside. But I actually had the NFC playoffs running through Detroit. So I have Detroit going at 13-4.
Yeah, you do.
Carry on. What, blowing smoke up your arse or going to Detroit?
I'll say yeah, you do. Yeah, you have the NFC playoffs going that way. Damn right you do. Well done.
I got the Packers 1 game behind on 12-5. I think they've somehow come across another great quarterback, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. The Bears, I've got them at 8 and 9 but I'm just, because what I think I saw something on Twitter. I forgot to bookmark it because there was some really good insightful information. You know, what Caleb Williams has done in preseason has been great. It looks really good, really fantastic. Someone reported when he was in college, the first sign of not animosity, it's another term of phrase. It's when he starts struggling and so on. When he starts struggling, it seems like he just gives up immediately.
Adversity.
Thank you very much. Adversity, that's the one I was on about. When the first sign of adversity comes, he folds. You can't do that in the NFL. You really simply go, especially for a Chicago Bears team that they rely on defense pretty much all of their history. This is the first time they're going to have great receivers and a quarterback for the future for the next 10, 15 years. He has to, I hate to use this term of phrase because it sounds very, very condescending of me, but he will need to man up as soon as any sort of adversity hits him. He's got to understand that this is the NFL. It stands for not for long. And if you crumble under the pressure, you're going to be forgotten very, very soon. But I've got the Bears sitting 8 and 9. And the Vikings, I also had 8 and 9. That was until JJ McCarthy went down with the injury. I've now got a sitting with 5 and 12. And you got Sam Darnold, the quarterback. I mean, you may as well bring back Christian Ponder or bloody Sam Bradford back or something on those lines. It's not going to be pleasant. Great defense, but I feel sorry for Justin Jefferson. He's not going to get the volume that he wants out of this. So, yeah, that's my prediction for the NFC North.
Thank you, Karl. Awesome. Just to go in, yeah, I have a lot of respect for Kevin O'Connell. I think all the coaches, actually, except for Eberflus in the NFC North, are top notch. I think I think it's really, really some really good coaching. I agree with you. I think JJ looked really promising. I think he still would have had a rookie season, so I'm not sure their ceiling was quite as high as everybody else thought they would be. But I agree. I think it's going to be a really tough sledding with Sam Darnold, despite hipster NFL fans all think that Sam may have some sort of renaissance in him with this team. I'm with you. I think it's probably about 5 wins for them. And then I would also go the Bears next. I think the Bears are really fun. They're really interesting. I'm excited to watch great quarterbacking, which maybe Caleb Williams. I know there's some Caleb Williams hater on this pod, but I like watching him, and I'm interested in this team. I think Hard Knocks has been a lot of fun. The second episode wasn't quite as good as the first, in my opinion, but I'm interested to see what an offensive juggernaut a Bears team could look like. I wanted to be controversial and say that the Packers were going to take a bigger step forward, but I could not let the fact that I have been a Lions lover
Don't you do
for
it?
3 years straight. Calm down. You need to mute yourself, Fletch. This is my time. I have not just the Dan Campbell experience, but I like them as a team. They play for each other. I really enjoyed them. They were so close to getting to the Super Bowl last year. I don't think they let that step. I don't think losing that NFC Championship game is going to let them take a step back. I think they're going to even try harder, and I think Dan Campbell and his team, his coaches, are not going to let them be complacent. I think it's them. Now, when they get in the dance, it's all going to be how well can they perform. And I also the only concern I had there is if you lose Goff for a couple of games, do you have the horses behind him to win some games without him? Knock on wood, he doesn't get hurt. But that's the big question for me. It's a long season. He's an older, he's older, but not too old. But he might miss Matt Ryan missed some games here and there, and it's like, do you have somebody that can step in and win that game? But I also, I have the Lions top of the seed. I have them also as the top seed in the NFC this year. And I had the Packers as the wild card, and I think the Packers are going to probably win 9 to 10 games as well. And that is what I have. Before we move on, any other thoughts on the NFC North?
No. Let the war commence. It's going to be
Excellent.
a war.
All right. Well, we have come to what has the last couple of years been the worst division in all of football, and I don't like making a lot of proclamations about my team because I'm one of those people that believes when you talk crap, it usually goes sideways for you until you win. And obviously the Falcons haven't won much in the last few years to talk anything about. I was completely prepared to come on this podcast this week and say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be winning this division. In the last week, I have changed my mind. And I don't believe that anymore. Mainly because I think the Falcons are showing that this defense is not going to be maybe a top 10 unit, but they aren't going to be pushed around. And I think Raheem Morris, and a new head coach Raheem Morris, and defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake have a plan for what they're doing here. And there's a lot of youth on this team that hasn't made the leaps yet. And I don't think we had the right coaches for them. We saw what Raheem did with that really young defense on the Rams last year, and he is a guy who can get the most out of his team. They don't have to be superstars yet, but I think adding someone like Judon, and then now you have Simmons and Jesse Bates, two premier Pro Bowl premier safeties. I think we're kind of seeing what this team can be. You add Grady Jarrett, who's been hurt, who last year, after 9 straight seasons of just either Pro Bowl play or almost Pro Bowl play, he's coming back. And you have Caden Ellis, you have Onyemata, you have a lot of really good pieces there. I think for the first time, this defense could be a little above average. And we have a schedule that is very favorable to us. We have first 6 games are going to be a little tough because we have Steelers at home, then we go to Philly and we play them. I can't remember if it's Sunday Night Football, and then we come back and we play the Chiefs on another primetime game, and then we have 3 straight division games. But after those first 6 games, if we can kind of come out even 3-3, 4-3 maybe, or 4-2, I think this team has a very, very favorable schedule. Now, they haven't done it. They are the paper champions of the entire NFL, and we all know it. We've all been talking about it because what could Pitts be? What could Drake London be? What's Kirk Cousins going to be? I don't know. But we're just talking about regular season. And Kirk Cousins can play well in the regular season. Now, playoffs, that's a whole different matter. But right now, we just need to get in the dance. I do believe that the Falcons are going to win 10 games this year. I think mainly because I think the defense is not going to be a sieve, which was what was concerning to I think us. I don't know if they're going to have a top 10 offensive unit, but I think they're going to be good enough to win some ball games. And with the schedule they have, it makes sense. That's why I'm picking them. Now, logic says that Tampa Bay is still going to be very good. And if Baker Mayfield can be as good as he was last year, that is a really good team. And they scare me. And I don't think enough people are talking about this because they're only 3 years removed from winning a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And that is still a really good defense. It's got some really good skill position players. I think Mike Evans is probably one of the best wide receivers that no one talks about enough. And they have a great offensive line. Not great, but they have a solid offensive line. I think for where I get concerned with them as head coach. And they've also lost Dave Canales to the Panthers. And Dave Canales did a heck of a job with that offense last year. But I will remind you, the Falcons almost won that division last year. We lost 2 games. And one of those games was that we had Tampa Bay on the ropes at home. Was it at home? I think it was at home. And we should have won that game, and we didn't. And then we wasted another game. So we were right there with them in a crap division. Now, I will say this too. I hate the Aints. I think the Aints are going to be awful. I think there's just everything involved. They've been kicking the can down the road, and I've definitely gone over my 2 minutes. But I think the Aints are going to be awful. I'm a little more bullish on the Panthers because I think they got the right coach. I'm interested to see what Dave Canales can do with Bryce Young. If Bryce Young can have a bounce back year, if he doesn't, I think he's going to be gone in 3 years because I don't know. I think you got to move on if you can't put it together after 3 years. Anyway, I'm picking the Falcons to win this division. I think they win 10 games. I think Tampa Bay is right behind them at 9, and then I think it's going to be a fight to the finish with the Saints and the Panthers. Though I think you can maybe say the Saints have a slightly better roster, but I just don't. I just think the vibes in that place with Derek Carr, Dennis Allen as a coach. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Sorry, I went a little long. Carl, I know you got many thoughts on the NFC South. This is a division you hate, right?
No, it's not a division I hate. It's just, as you said, it has been the worst division in the NFL, and it still is the worst division in the NFL. Let's start from the bottom, work our way to the top, shall we? So, the Carolina Panthers. Any franchise that is run by David Tepper, you're in the doghouse. Legitimately in the doghouse. This guy does not know how to run a football franchise, and it showed last year. With the dealings that they did was absolutely love. The DJ Moore trade, where they traded so much, that I wasn't bothered by the picks. It was trading DJ Moore. You really think Bryce Young could have done with DJ Moore in that receiving position? Yes. So they had to rely on a 33-year-old Adam Thielen to be their number 1 receiver. Yeah, we know how that one's going to pan out. The Panthers, I've got them as the worst team going. 2-15 this season. There's not going to be much better, but at least they have a first overall pick next year. That's not going to be good. The Saints, as you said, they've got a good crop of players, but then you look at the quarterback, Derek Carr. You know, it's a bit like a very old rusty car. You know, there's 2 flat tires. The exhaust has fallen off. There are rats living in the boot. The engine is pretty much on fire at this point. And it's just not a good look for the Saints. It really ain't. So I've got them at 6-11. Now I'm on the same side of you for the Bucks. Okay, I originally had them as division winners, and then the Falcons made their 2 trades. I've got the Bucks going at 10-7. They'll nip at the heels, and I think they'll still do well. What we'll find out from the new offensive coordinator if he does any well. Baker Mayfield will need to see if last year was nothing more than a fluke. If he gets back to the playoffs again, then he is a surefire quarterback to lead this team further on down the road. And then you get to the Falcons. I've got you going at 11-6, so I've got you 11 wins. Here's the bit I don't get with the Falcons. Okay, so you know the 2 premium trades you made with Simmons and with Judon, brilliant. That's probably what's going to take you over the top. But there is an asterisk. I can see you winning the division. I could also see the Falcons winning a playoff game. Super Bowl aspirations, not yet. Not yet. And there are 3 parts to this. Kirk Cousins, he's made one NFC championship his entire career. It's not exactly cut and dry that he will make it to a Super Bowl. And overall, I think the Falcons, you are still... There's a reason why I've decided to wear this T-shirt tonight. Because you are still plagued by 28-3. You are scared of going back to the Super Bowl because you don't want to suffer another fate of it. It's a bit like being scared of getting into another relationship because you're scared of getting your heart broken again. First of all, A, it's a smart strategy. But B, also makes you a fucking coward at the same time. But on the more positive note, I have got Falcons winning the division at 11-6.
I'd just like to make a friendly reminder that in the following season, that Super Bowl, we went to LA and won a playoff game, and then we're a hair away from beating the team that beat you the following year in Philadelphia, which we held to 9 points, and you allowed to rack up 40 points. So we weren't scared of nothing, Carl. We had no Super Bowl hangover after the worst Super Bowl loss in history. So we are ready to go back, but I agree.
But you still kept choking leads from seasons and seasons after that.
But now we got Judon. Thank you.
Yes, I know. But the thing is, when the first thing you do when you go into rehab is admit you got a problem.
We did. Sam, who do you got in the NFC South?
I'm backing Raheem. I think Raheem's going to take you to a playoff. I've got you at 10-7. I don't think the Bucs. I've toyed with the idea of where the Bucs are going to be, whether they're going to be 8-9 and 9-8, and I've gone with 9-8. They'll just do what they did last year. They'll just surprise teams when it won't be pretty, it won't be high scoring, won't be crazy. It'll just be efficient, and it'll just sort of get games over the line. I've got the Saints going 8-9, which I think is just over their prediction of 7.5. I still, although I agree with the Derek Carr comments, I think their defense is still good, and I think that's what they've always lent on over the last few years, is their defense being good. And they've still got Olave, they've still got Taysom Hill, who can do some random ass plays and somehow manage to win them. Help win them games
and ruin everyone's fantasy freaking lineup.
So 8-9, and then I've got the Panthers 3-14. I just think they're going to be trash again, and I feel for Bryce Young. Coming out of college, being the Heisman winner, being drafted in the first round pick, and just everything has just been awful around him. So it's just going to be another season of woe for the Panthers. I don't have them as getting the first overall pick, but they're going to be in the top 3.
Nice. Fletch, it is on to you. The NFC South. Who do you have winning? Who do you have coming in last? What do you like?
I really like the Falcons this year. I really, really do. I think they've got everything. It's going to be a tough battle with the Bucs. Going all the way to, I think it's a division that will go to quite possibly the very last game of the season between the Falcons and the Bucs. But I do think the Falcons just about take it. And I think the NFC South will be one of the divisions that provides 2 playoff teams. I think it's going to be a tale of 2 halves of a division, and the Saints and Panthers very, very much going to be battling it out to see who gets the higher pick out of the 2, at which I think the Saints will win that battle and get the higher pick. I think I like Dave Canales, and I like what I feel he may bring to... I know it sounds a bit weird to say I like what he might do, but what he could bring, what I feel he could genuinely bring to that team, what I feel could be if Bryce Young genuinely steps up year 2 and he's truly taken the off-season to improve like many quarterbacks do after the first season, they're not going to be lighting the league up, but they could be better. They will be better than last year. And the Saints will take a sad nosedive. I say sad, that's just because I will have to deal with... Do you know what? no, I don't have to deal with a sad mopey wife, because I'll be the one having to tell my wife every Monday morning, oh, by the way, the Saints lost yesterday. So yeah, I don't really see it going any other way. Yeah. It will be a tale of two halves of a division, one terrible half, one pretty damn good half.
I did forget to read the over-unders because, of course, I got really excited. So Vegas has Atlanta at 9.5, Tampa Bay at 7.5, New Orleans at 7.5, which I think is ridiculously high, Carolina at 5.5. We seem pretty aligned here. It will be interesting to see what this Saints team is at this point, if Derek Carr's got anything left in the tank. But man, I was watching the 49ers Saints preseason game last night, which again, take with a grain of salt. But there's just, as I was saying in our when we were talking before the pod, there's just bad vibes going on that in that Saints team that I don't know
There's a
about.
lot of I know a couple of Saints fans, and a lot of them have been talking. Well, I say I've been praising, and I use praising in a very loose term, Spencer Rattler. Apparently, he's had a relatively good preseason. I've not really watched any of his games. I don't rate him because he's a Sooner, and I think he's a waste of space. But yeah, I don't get the hype with Spencer Rattler. I never will. So yeah, just thought I'd add that little caveat about Spencer Rattler.
Well, that's the NFC South, guys. And finally, after 90 minutes, we're finally at the NFC West. Obviously, the 49ers were the representative in the Super Bowl last year, losing to the Chiefs. We have a still freshly minted Rams Super Bowl champion from 3 years ago, whatever, however you count your Super Bowls. This is also a great division. Vegas right now, let's see where we're at here. Vegas has the San Francisco 49ers atop of the NFC West this year with 11.5 wins, followed right by the scrappy Los Angeles Rams at 8.5. Seattle's right there, 7.5, and Cardinals 6.5. Almost all these teams, Vegas is saying, are within a win or so of each other, outside of having San Francisco up there with 11.5. Sam, resident Rams fan, what do you think about your NFC West this season?
I'm quite shocked at how low they have the Rams. Actually, I was quite surprised at that. But they do have some tough games. So yeah, I mean, maybe there is that. As much as this really pains me to say, I think the Niners are going to win the division again. I think they're going to go 13-4, the same as the Lions. But I think the Lions are going to nip it and take that number one spot, as I've already said. They are. I mean, obviously, we don't know what's happening with Ayuk and all the issues with the off season with him. I don't think there's going to be anything bad that comes out of it. I genuinely think he's just going to sign a new deal and they're going to play. That's just how I see it going. From what I've heard from a lot of the Niners fans, who do have quite a big support over here, a lot of them are saying that this happened a lot last year, where players were touted to be traded due to off-field contract issues, and then they all get resolved right before the season and it's all done. So I don't know. I can't see them not offering Ayuk another contract, which he will then take. So I think he'll be a Niners player this season anyway. The Rams, I've got them. I've recently done the Around the NFL podcast, and I did predict the Rams to go 11-6. So I think we're going to be battling it out with the Packers for one of those playoff spots. Obviously, I think I've got the Packers 11-6 as well. So I think they're going to nudge just in front of us. So they'll take the fifth, we'll take the sixth. Just based upon the fact that I do think they're a slightly better team than us this year. Third, I've got the Seahawks, and I know there's a lot of, I don't know how the Seahawks are going to be. Obviously, new head coach. I've got them going 8-9, which feels really low for the Seahawks, given the fact that over the years it's always been a very tough division. The Seahawks, I don't know whether they're going to be the same as they always are. It's just a surprise package with how they're going to play, I think. And the Cardinals, I've got them going how the Lions did a couple of years ago where they played phenomenal football but couldn't win for shit. And I think that they're going to be they're going to be like that this year. So I've actually got them going 5-12, which is really low. And that's just purely because I don't see them winning. Maybe they'll win one divisional game, but I think that's going to be a killer for them. Is that the Niners and the Rams are going to be too strong for them. The Seahawks they'll go 1-1 with them as they always seem to do. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just not. I get the hype with Marvin Harrison and with Murray back and everything, but yeah, I'm not 100% sold on the Cardinals. They're always just the additional team in that division. So yeah, 5-12 is probably maybe a bit harsh, but that's where I see them at.
It's more respectful than I am of the Saints, Sam, so don't feel too bad. Fletch, NFC West. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, again, it's one of those divisions where the top team will remain the top team until somebody else proves otherwise, or until they prove themselves to no longer be the best in that division. The 49ers have had it their way now for a couple of years, and it's difficult. It's one of those, right? The Rams are going to have to either step up, the Seahawks or the Cardinals, or they have to seriously regress. But either way, it's the 49ers to lose until otherwise. The Rams, other than the fact that they're going to get absolutely blown away in the first game, and that's obviously going to terribly derail the season, I think they'll do quite well. Other than that first game of the season. And they will chase the 49ers down in what could potentially be a bit of a dogfight. And I've mentioned it before, I will continue to kind of pound the rock for it. But I am a Kyler Murray believer. I genuinely think he is a very, very good quarterback and has everything that he needs and will need to succeed. It will be the Seahawks for me that take the serious nosedive. And to kind of bring it back to the NFC North, I hope that this is for the love of everything. I hope this is the year we finally get to beat the Seahawks, because we always just seem to lose out to them. I hate it. So 49ers to lose, Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, and the Rams, again, they will always be there or thereabouts until they prove otherwise. Sean McVay just knows how to win and put together a winning product. It's not in his DNA to lose. The Cardinals, I think, are going to take a massive step forward. Kyler Murray is him and will prove so this year. And the Seahawks to not be a basement dweller of the league or the NFC, but will be quite comfortably at the bottom of the West.
Nice. Good thoughts there, Fletch. Karl, over to you. NFC West.
I'm on the same sort of I'm on the same sort of trajectory as Fletch here regarding of the back end, regarding of the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Seattle, they don't have Pete Carroll anymore. There's going to be some teething problems with the new coach because they're so used to Pete Carroll's system now. So it's going to be interesting how they pan out. I have always looked at DK Metcalf as a very very sketchy type of receiver. One game he can be absolutely on fire and brilliant, but next he can make it. He could have an absolute dud of a game. He hasn't got that level of consistency. I do like the running game. Kenneth Walker, I think, is a fantastic running back for them. But are they really going to rely on Kenneth Walker throughout that entire season? Because you are just going to run him into the ground. But I've got the Seahawks go.
They've got Zach Charbonnet as well still.
They got Zach Charbonnet, who's actually pretty good as well. So they've got a good running tandem. But Geno Smith a callback. Look, I was glad when Geno got his money because he spent so much time and he grafted for 10 years to try and make it in the NFL, and he managed to do it at long last. But is he really going to take him to like the promised land, get into the playoffs and win playoff games? The answer is no. I've got the Seahawks going to 6-11, so I've got the same effect. I think they are going to nosedive. Pardon the bird pun there. Talking of birds, the Arizona Cardinals. what it's going to be this season, it's going to be a 5% of James Conner running the ball. It's going to be 5% of Kyler Murray running around like a rambunctious toddler who's stolen his dad's mobile phone for like the umpteenth time. And then it's going to be 90% of, fuck it, Marv is down there somewhere. That's what it's going to be this season. I've got the Cardinals going at 7-10. I have the Niners winning the division, but by the skin of their teeth. I've got them going at 12-5, and I've got the Rams at 11-6. I think what stopped me from saying the Rams may have a change, the loss of Aaron Donald. Yes, you've now got Jared Versin, who you drafted, but he may have the same quality as Aaron Donald, but Aaron Donald is just Aaron Donald. He was just a specimen that no one has ever seen before. So that's why I've got the Rams slightly below. But the Rams will make the playoffs regardless in my eyes. And the 49ers, as Fletch has already said, until someone knocks them off, they're the best in the NFC for a reason. However, this is their last chance of making this. This is their last chance of winning a Super Bowl, because the amount of free agencies they've got next season is astronomical. So they have to do it this year. Otherwise, it's all been for naught.
Is it next year that they have to pay Trent Williams?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so. And then there's Trent Williams, and obviously there's Debo's due a payday.
Debo's due a payday.
He got paid.
Debo's paid. I think it might be
someone else really big. Was it maybe Fred Warner?
Fred Warner, that was the one that came in my mind. Yeah, Fred Warner.
Fred Warner, yeah.
So you get the same as Fletch, really, in that ascending order.
Thanks, Carl. I'm gonna be very contrarian here. I think the Rams are gonna take this division this year, and it's not so much. Though I am a self-professed, as Sam knows, I'm a huge fan of Sean McVay. I'm fascinated by reading and learning about him and how he thinks about football and thinks about things, just because he's an incredibly smart dude, and I have a lot of respect for him. But I also equally feel I have more complicated feelings with Kyle Shanahan, which we can go in another therapy session at some point with Carl. But here's what I think. The vibes out of 40, and I'm a vibes guy this year, apparently, but the vibes out of the 49ers is just feels very much like a team that lost the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter again. And I think the stuff with Ayuk is interesting, though. I think, Sam, you've said it. You believe all along that they're going to pay Ayuk and keep him, and I think that's probably what's going to happen. It's hard to pick against them, but I think one of the division winners has to change this year outside of the NFC South, and I think it's this one. And I just kind of think Stafford might have some old magic left in him to go one more year and make it really competitive. I'm not betting my house on this whatsoever. I just like to be different, and I think the Rams are going to win this division. I think the 49ers are going to be quite close there, and I actually think they'll be still in the playoffs, though I think they might just take a step back because it's really hard to go all the way to the Super Bowl and, lose it like that again. I mentioned the 2017 Falcons. No one likes to remember them because they they remember Super Bowl 51 for obvious reasons, but they didn't win their division, but they were actually a better team wholeheartedly. And then they didn't win the division, but they did go on the road and won. They beat the LA Rams a year before they would go to the Super Bowl, and then almost. And I just think that the 49ers are still going to be really good. I say that, but I don't know if they're going to be good enough to pedal the metal and win this division, even with all that talent. It might be really stupid, and I might be kicking myself at the end of the year by picking this, but I just feel like you got to pick someone like the Rams.
There's two reasons why I can understand why you say that, Chapman. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But there's two parts where I can actually see the Rams possibly winning the division. One, it will come from the 49ers and their injuries. If they get a load of injuries, I can see the Rams taking the division then. And the other one, it's more the mental side of things. How you've been to Super Bowl twice. You got beaten by the Chiefs twice. You've lost in the NFC Championship. It's all about the mental side of the game now. The mental blockage. How many more times? It's a bit like the Buffalo Bills. How many more times are you going to reach the AFC Championship and still not get past Kansas City? It becomes a mental thing. So if they need to get over that hump.
Yeah, and can Kyle do it? And I think it has a lot to do with their head coach. What is he going to change at all in order to make that happen? Just to fill out the rest, I don't really have a lot of thoughts on Seattle. I think they're rebuilding. Obviously, they've lost their longtime, legendary head coach, Pete Carroll. It's McDonald, right? He's come in from the Ravens, arguably the best defensive coordinator last year. That's a team that has historically been known for its defense. It'll be interesting to see there, but I just don't really see them competing with Geno, even if he has an average, his repeats what he's done the last 2 years. I'm really interested to see what Kyler Murray is now that he's healthy. He looked really good in those last couple of games last year. Obviously, he'll be fantasy darling. I'm just interested to see that, what that team is. I don't really have any bets, but they are also one of those teams that could surprise some people. It's not like they're void of talent. Their coach is well respected, obviously coming over from the Eagles 2 years ago. So I don't know. This is the team that, living in London, I get to watch so few NFC West games unless, there's a special reason on prime time. Over the years, I've kind of lost a lot. I always have to catch up on highlights. But I'm actually really interested to watch this division this year because there's just a lot of dynamics to play that'll be interesting. Guys, that's it. Do we have any kind of ending thoughts here on the NFC?
Yeah, so the one thing I am looking forward to seeing is the Seahawks defense, only because we have a British defensive coordinator. And again, I think most of us would like to pound the table to see one of our own do well in such a position in the NFL. So I think, of course, I guess I'm kind of banking this season on the offense just being damn awful, but the defense being great. But shout out to Aiden Durd, and I really, really want to see some success from him, even if he is a West Ham fan.
I mean, to be fair, that Seahawks the Seahawks secondary is quite tasty. Like, you look at their secondary that they've got. I mean, you've got Devin Witherspoon and Reek Woolen, Julian Love. I know obviously they've lost a few in that secondary, but yeah, they're quite. I think they're gonna. I have a soft spot for the Seahawks because the guy that introduced me to the NFL is a Seahawks fan, which is weird given the fact I'm a Rams fan. So I kind of like seeing them do quite well. Obviously not at our expense, but I like to see them do well. So yeah, I'd quite like to see them. Hopefully the new head coach will be exciting, will bring his own spin on a team that, like I say, has been paralyzed for the last God knows how many years. So I would quite like to see them do well, but that's probably why I have them going 8-9 and not 6-11 or whatever.
The one thing I can see the Seahawks doing really well, especially in the NFC West, they will make it very, very competitive against the Rams and the 49ers. They will make sure it goes right down to the final snap of the ball. They will do. I always look at my calendar because when I'm the 49ers playing the Seahawks in Seattle, not when it's at Santa Clara or when it's actually in Seattle. And that game is always a bit of trepidation with that. You think the 49ers win, but the Seahawks with that crowd, remember, they've still got the 12th. They're the 12th man for a reason. One of the loudest in the NFL. It could really cause some issues. So yeah, I might be being a little bit. I might be right. I've got 6-11, but
they're going into that game after playing the Giants as well, so they could be going in on high, which could be quite interesting.
Just really question: we all have. I think. Do we all have the Lions as our number one seed out of the NFC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
What does everybody has as their wild card teams?
Well, I've in terms of the order, I've got it as Lions 1, Niners 2, Eagles 3, Falcons 4, Packers 5, Rams 6. And for some reason, I thought I didn't have the Cowboys making it, but I've got the Cowboys making it with the 7th wildcard for the final pick. But that's just purely because they're the only other team that I've got, apart from the Bucs, having a positive season. So I don't know really how much of a win that is for the Cowboys, but they'll then play the Niners in the playoffs and get absolutely butt-fucked, so it won't really matter.
Packers, Rams, and Bucks for me in the wild card. Not necessarily in that order, but Packers, Rams, and Bucks.
Yeah, I'm on the same trajectory as Sam here. The only thing I'd change is not the Cowboys, but I'll have the Buccaneers as the 7th seed. Basically, you need to win 10 games or more to get into the playoffs from the NFC.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I can. The way I had it, this is why I'm dumb, is somehow I have either the 49ers, the Eagles not being in as a wild card because I've made these weird picks. So I don't think either one of those makes sense. So I got to kind of look through here. So I think mine is Packers, Eagles, and 49ers is the way I have mine, which would be very weird. Cool. Fletch, you got it for us?
I do. I have one for you, and given the time, you will have a maximum of 30 seconds to come up with the answer this time round, rather than kind of going for a little bit until Chapman says, right, stop now, please. You have this week, Right, try again. You'll guess the player of the week via their career path. They were a Panther, a Titan, a Patriot, a Falcon, now a Dolphin.
What was that again?
A Panther, sorry. They were a Panther, a Titan, a Patriot, a Falcon, now a Dolphin. I will give you...
Defensive player?
No.
It was off not a bad. Okay.
10 more seconds on this one.
Is it Hayden? No, he played for.
No,
You were going to say Hayden Hurst there.
he
which I was
was the
thinking of
Magic
same,
Unicorn.
but it wasn't.
No, he didn't play for Patriots.
Is it? Yeah, I know he might still be at the Falcons. Begins with H.
Nope.
Long-haired fella.
Nope.
Wide receiver.
Nope.
Collins. That was the guy I was thinking of. But I couldn't think who he played for before the Falcons.
Give
So.
you one
He
clue.
played for the Raiders.
I'll give you kind of 2 clues. He joined the Dolphins this year, played on the Falcons last season, and he was a tight end.
Smart.
It's
Johnny Smith.
Johnny Smith.
Johnny
of course.
Smith.
Johnny
Long
Smith.
one.
How did I not
Smith.
get that? I feel
Yeah.
Carl, you and I both should have gotten that. I forgot.
Well, as soon as he said tight end, I thought, right, I know this guy. Who is it? Who's
So,
he joined? I was like,
Johnny
yes.
Smith, who got more targets in the red zone last year than Bijan.
I know,
much
and we
to
paid.
the-
Yeah, and when he was with us, we paid him $50 million to do absolutely fuck all. So,
Like I said, the rule is going to be going forward that it will involve one of our teams at least. And obviously, over the last week, it involved 2 of our teams. This week, it involved 2. So the whole point being, hopefully, someone will bloody get it if they've been on your team within the last couple of years. And that's 2 weeks in a row where that hasn't worked, sadly.
Man, it's because we don't have Tom and Ollie on here. We're just, you know.
Do you know what? It's something really funny. I sent, because Ollie wasn't with us last week when it was a Patriot and a Brown. I sent the video, the clip to Ollie just before I posted it. And he got back to me in less than the time it would have taken to watch the video. He got back to me with who it was. And like I said last week, I knew Ollie would get it. Got it straight away. Which was quite funny.
Well, you know, those young brains. They're firing on all cylinders. Thanks so much, Fletch. Always enjoy a guest player. This has been great, guys. Thanks for talking NFC. We're 1 week away. This is our last 2 weekends away, but one official week away. I will actually be at the Falcons-Jags game on Friday at the Benz. So I'll send some pictures your way, guys.
Wow.
In the meantime...
Have fun going to a live football game this weekend, Chapman.
Oh,
That sounds like a really interesting thing to do. Are you going to a live football game this weekend, Carl?
no, but I know that one of your college guys on the pod, Mr. Nick Robinson, he is off to Ireland this Saturday for.
Is he really?
Yeah, for the Ireland Classic for the
really?
Georgia Tech Florida State game.
Hopefully, I'll see. Well, I will see him there at Manchester Airport and sat next to me on the plane because we're going together. So,
oh, friends, give us thumbs up,
friends.
friends.
Yeah, that's week 0, which somehow became a thing the last few years. As an old-time college football person, I think it's asinine. But anyway, week 0, the kickoff is in Dublin. Florida State versus Georgia Tech, the nerds, if you will, as we call them here in Georgia. That's going to be exciting. Fletch, I hope you have a great time. Please send
Yes.
us pictures.
We will do. And if you would like to listen to a preview of this game, Sam and I, on Thursday morning, will be right with you to do that.
I won't be. I can't make it this week. I did tell you. But
Oh, yeah, you will. You will.
Yeah.
So,
but Fletch will be, and so will
I will.
Nick and probably Gary.
yeah, we'll see. But we will have a preview on the College Football Podcast this week for you to listen to the day after this drops. So if you're listening to it the day after, it's out already. If not, be out tomorrow.
If I haven't said it already, that's why you're the super producer. We have super producer Fletch, who's always doing more on the AAW network. Thank you so much. Listen to College Pod, listen to Hurdle Line.
Yes.
Thank you, Karl. Karl, if he is everything you need for your Patriots fandom, if you are that persuasion, I think Karl has his own stuff. So look up Karl. Sam, thank you so much, who's also a member of our college football and Hurdle Line valued member. Thank you, sir. Guys, thanks so much for the night. Great job going through the NFC. Next week, we will be doing superlatives, I believe. We'll be picking our favorites for
the pre-season, postseason awards. So we will do like normal postseason awards, but essentially we'll just be predicting who will win those awards.
For those of you who are not watching on YouTube, Karl has started to bring props into the podcast, which always is great for an audio format, but he just held up a trophy. Yes, we'll be going through our preseason awards, which will be exciting. Hopefully we'll have everybody back with us next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, give us a review, only 5 stars, and helps people find the podcast. We're going to be rolling into the season. We're almost there after months and months of talking all sorts of hootenanny. We're almost to real football. Fletch, have a safe trip to Ireland. Enjoy yourself. Please, we'll look forward to hearing about it next week. Everybody else, have a good night. Hurdle that week 0. That's all I got. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Have a great night.
Hurdle that leprechaun.
Hurdle